MVM, the game mode where you can get kicked for doing absolutely nothing. If you want to become good at MVM, you've come to the right place. This is the all-inclusive Meta MVM guide. We're going to start off with the medic. When you play medic, we're first going to go over upgrades. The upgrades you should get first are Healing Mastery, Overhealing Master, and Shields. If you want to, down the line, some other good upgrades would be to get Mad Milk Syringes if you're using the Blutsauger, or Clip Size if you're using the Crusader's Crossbow, Resistances, and Canteen Specialist, which allows you to transfer the canteen you're using to your patient. Now, when you play medic, the shield is bound to middle mouse by default. I would use the shield when you see crit bots or giant bots and you want to protect your team from it to stop early deaths. Now, the reason why you get Overheal and Healing Mastery is to prevent early deaths early on the wave when people don't have their resistances up. What you can also do with medic is if one of your teammates dies, you can revive them. You will see a little contraption by their feet and a hologram of them. Just heal that for a bit and they will come back to life. Also, instead of using stock medigun, I would recommend using Kritzkrieg because you'll be able to give crits without wasting canteens, which I would recommend saving for trying to keep you or a patient alive. Now, medic is a vital part of the team, so if you don't see a medic, play medic please. Moving on to the Pyro, the most recent meta addition to MVM. Now, the reason why Pyro has become very popular to play now is because of the Gas Passer. What the Gas Passer can do is it has an upgrade for Explosion on Ignite. This can take care of medic bots, large waves of crit bots, and the Pyro's Flamethrower can overall do a lot of damage to a bunch of bots at the same time. Now, Pyro can be a replacement for Demo, or be like another Demoman. Now, what are some good upgrades? Of course, I would go for Explosion on Impact and Time for the Gas Passer, and on the main Flamethrower, I would go for Burn Time and Heal on Kill. And that's because you don't want your medic to babysit you as much. And I would also recommend Resistances, because you're going to be very close to bots. Now, how do you play Pyro? I would play it like stay behind when the wave's starting and then play on the front line after that to try and like get in. And when you see medic bots, wait till they drop down and then cover them in the Gas Passer's gas and then ignite them. That will explode them all and it'll take care of all the medics without letting them pop either. You can essentially replace Demoman with a Pyro. Speak of the Devil, Demoman is also very useful in MVM. What he does is, as I touched on in the demo guide, you can use a medic's crits or a crit canteen to cover where the bots will land in some crit stickies. This can be used to get rid of some stronger bots, medic bots, and the like. The sticky bomb launcher is also one of the best sources of damage output in the game, along with the pipe bomb not being too shabby for when you're out of ammo. Now, I would recommend getting reload speed, clip size, and ammo reserve for the sticky bomb launcher. I would also recommend getting resistances, and specifically movement speed and jump height, but movement speed and jump height are more of a luxury, as goes for heavy, which we'll touch on later. Now, I would recommend not touching your pill launcher, and only really focusing on your sticky bomb launcher, because that's where most of your damage is going to be coming from. Also, for canteens, I did not touch on this, but for medic, I would go for Uber canteens. For Pyro, I would go for crit or Uber canteens. Refill ammo also tends to work pretty well. And for Demoman, I would recommend crit canteens or refill ammo. Those both tend to work very well. Just sticky spamming with Demo is how you get the most out of him in MVM. Now for the Soldier. For primaries, I would recommend using stock, black box, or the Cowmanger. Because the Cowmanger does not rely on ammo, it is good when you don't have that good of an NG, or maybe you don't have an NG that can keep his dispenser up. For the black box, I'd recommend it if your medic is spending a bit too much time on the demo or heavy or pyro and is not focusing on keeping everyone alive and focusing on specific targets. Stock is good for beginners because there's no real downsides to it. Let's talk about secondaries. Any of the banners work, but I prefer the buff banner and the conch. I find the most success with the conch, personally, but the buff banner works, and the backup, it's very good in casual, but in MVM it's not that good because most of the time people will have crit resistance maxed out very early. Now let's talk about upgrade paths. When you're upgrading, I would recommend getting reload speed first, then firing speed, and then at least one rocket specialist. Health on kill is also very helpful, as you can make yourself less reliant on the medic. You definitely want full damage, and resistance can work depending on the wave. And for canteens, I would recommend crits or uber to maximize your output and make sure you don't die as often. As for using the conch, I would recommend saving it for when a crits wave is coming up or when there is a giant robot coming with a bunch of medics, because that's when you'll get the most use out of it, whether it be the buff banner, so you'll mini crit the bot before the scout can go in with a fan, the conch, so your team won't die as often to crits, or maybe as much as I don't think you should use it in MVM, the backup, where you'll take less damage from crits. Now for heavy, the last of the main damage classes. For heavy, I would recommend using either stock or the brass beast, because the heavy's role is mainly large DPS on single targets. Because of every other minigun using a damage decrease penalty, the brass beast having a damage up and stock just being better for mobility, I would recommend either using the stock for places where there's a lot of different ways that bots can come, or brass beast for specifically Manhattan, where there's only one place where bots will come from and the other side will be held down by an engineer. For secondaries, I recommend using any of the food items, because you won't be using your secondary often, and it's good to heal any teammates in a pinch between waves, between the little parts of waves where there's some downtime. Melees, I recommend stock or the Fist of Steel for retreating, but you won't be using your fists anyways, so it doesn't really matter what type of fist you use. Now let's move on to upgrades. For heavy, I recommend getting health on kill so you can be less reliant on a medic, resistances specific to the wave, stuff like blast for demos and medics, bullets for heavies and scouts, so on and so forth, full firing speed so you can fire quicker and get out more damage. I would get projectile penetration, so you can shoot multiple bots at once. I would get resistances that are less specific to the wave, stuff like crit resistances, and then I would recommend ammo capacity, and this is mainly a luxury, movement speed, or canteens, or destroy projectiles. Destroy projectiles are not that specific. And rage is also very good for getting rid of bosses. Now, I might be wrong on rage, it's a bit decisive, and if you're going canteens, I recommend crits or ubers so you can get in the faces or do more damage. One more thing about the heavy is on tanks, your damage is actually cut. It's a bullet damage resistance, so I think it only applies to heavy or scout. I might be wrong, but I know it applies to heavy for a fact. So stay off tanks and mainly hold down the front line. Next, we'll go over the scout. One of the arguably most important people on the team, the scout's main job is to collect money and pick off smaller bots. Now, what should you be using for the scout's primary? I would recommend using either stock to put out more damage or the soda popper so you can get to higher places easier. Now, for secondaries, always use the Mad Milk. Because of the Mad Milk having the ability to slow down when upgraded, it is very important for boss scouts, which are very, very prevalent early on. Now for melees, I would recommend using the Fan of War, because the mini crits is very good for boss robots and for very tanky giant robots. The things about the scout that make him great at his job is that he has some innate abilities. He has instant respawns, he gets health boost from collected cash, which does give you overheal, and he has an extra large cash collection radius, which will also draw in cash. Now for upgrade trees. I recommend getting Mad Milk Slowdown first. Always get this first, it is very good. Movement speed and jump height, as this allows you to have easier access to upgrade to areas that are higher, such as on Manhattan, the ledge to the left of the stairwell. And I would recommend getting resistances. Recommend getting crits and explosion rockets. Those are very good for scout because it allows you to stay alive longer and allows you to stay alive when you don't have any extra overheal from cash. And lastly, we'll be talking about the engineer. For primaries, I recommend using the Rescue Ranger only, because you're really only meant to maintain a sentry and dispenser, and this will help you heal from long ranges, reducing splash that you would get from your sentry. Now, along with that, I recommend using the Wrangler and the stock wrench. Now, the Wrangler, because it allows you to pick off targets, and something that a lot of people don't know, is that the Wrangler increases your damage, it increases your fire rate, and the spray at which your rockets reload. It also can pick off, the shield will also reduce, I think it's 30% damage, and that increases the amount of tankiness your sentry can have. Now for upgrades, I recommend getting full dispenser range and rebuild canteens. This is the only class, maybe besides medic, that canteens are very highly recommended, and I would say don't go in without canteens. I would also get full building health and at least one max metal capacity. You can get more later when you have extra dosh flying around. Two-way teleporters, wrench attack speed so you can repair your sentry faster, and at least 2 ticks of metal max capacity, 1 to 2 ticks of sentry firing speed. One thing to be clear is that there might be a bug with it that makes it so only the first tick does something and the second tick only applies to Wrangler. I am not sure if this is true, as I've seen varying claims and no real research backing either stance up, but if it's a bug, I'm not sure. Resistances, movement speed, and jump height to get to your sentry and dispenser faster, and more max metal capacity or rescue ranger upgrades if you have any extra cash lying around. After wave 1, I'd recommend at least going in with 3 or more rebuild canteens, because if anything goes down, dispenser, sentry, teleporters even, it can help to build those and then use your canteen. So that'll be it for the MVM guide. If you enjoyed this, I would appreciate some feedback. I just want to know how I'm doing with this, and if you like this, maybe you'll like some of my other guides, maybe some of my other videos. Thanks for watching. Have an awesome day.